Hello and welcome back. In our last video, we created a new group, test users, and we added my two non-root accounts to that group. We then changed the owner and group of a specific file named file1. We left off, though, stating that our group permissions were not what we currently wanted. They were just read permissions. So let's check that out. First thing that we'll note is that I'm logged into my root account. And so I am going to change directories to the home directory of the Mike user, which is where we had created all those files. And so if I long list, we see here for file1, we changed the owner to Peter and we changed the group to the test users group. The problem is, however, that the group permissions are only read right now, right? We're lacking write and execute privileges if we want them. What we really want is read and write for the group. So therefore, we have to change the permissions of the file. And there's a few different ways that we could go about doing this. The first way is as follows. See, a file has three different permission types: the owner, the group, and then all other users. You can represent the permissions of one of those types with a single number. Let me explain for you. So 0 means no permissions. 1 stands for execute permissions. 2 stands for write permissions. And 4 stands for read permissions. If you add up all of the permissions, you get a single number. For example, read, write, and execute privileges would be 4 plus 2 plus 1, which is 7. Therefore, if we type 777, this stands for read, write, execute privileges of the owner, read, write, execute privileges of the group, and read, write, execute privileges for all other users. If we wanted just read and write privileges, it would be read and write. 4 plus 2 is 6. So if we did 666, this would represent read and write privileges for the owner, the group, and all other users. And we could do any combination. For example, if I did maybe 764, this number would represent read, write, execute privileges for the owner, read and write privileges for the group, and then read privileges for all other users. And so we can use these numbers in conjunction with a new command, chmod, to change the permissions of a file. We just type chmod and then the permission code, those three numbers that we want in the file name. So let's change the permissions of file1 to read and write for the owner and the group, and then let's remove the permissions for any other user. So in order to do that, let's see, I want read and write for the owner, so that's going to be a 6. I want read and write for the group, so that's a 6. And then I don't want to give any permissions to any other users, so I'm going to do 660, and then I'm going to type in my file name, file1. And so it looks like maybe those changes took place. So let's check. Let's long list. And if we look down here for file1 now, we see we have read-write privileges for the owner, read-write privileges for the group, and then no privileges for anyone else. So what this means, if I clear the screen, let's switch to the Mike account. Let's see. I should be able to write to file1. And we'll say, hi, Peter, and save it. And so that seemed to work just fine. And if I exit out, we're back to root. Let's su to Peter. And I should be able, as Peter, to also write to the file now. So let's see, nano file1. And we'll say, hi, Mike. Awesome. So it looks like we effectively changed the permissions for the group. And so now both Mike and Peter, because they belong to the test users group, can read and write that file. Wonderful. So let's clear the screen and get back to our root user. So we can mess around with changing, some of the permissions of these files. For instance, if I want to, let's just change file 2, I could do... Let's change the owner, chown, to root of file 2. So I changed the owner to root. All right. Let's change the group to, I don't know, we can just mess around. We'll say change group. We'll change it to admin of file 2. And so if I do ls tach l, I now see that the group has changed. And if I want to change some of these permissions, we'll use chmod. And let's change them to, let's do read, write, execute privileges for the owner. Let's do execute privileges for the group, and let's do read privileges for the any other user, I guess. We're just messing around, and then we'll say file 2. And so if we look, those changes should have effectively taken place. We have read, write, execute, we have execute, and then read. And if you notice here too, it looks like the file has changed color, it turned green, and we'll talk more about that later on in a moment. So let's clear the screen here. Perfect. Let's see what happens if we change the privileges of a folder really quick. So ls-tach-l. Let's change the privileges of the documents folder. So right now, I'm going to show you if I su to Peter. All right. So who am I? I'm Peter. And if I do ls, I can actually change directories into Mike's documents folder, and I can see what he has in here. He's got this playground. Well, that's what I have. You probably don't have that, maybe. I think I made that when I was testing. So if I back out of this, and I exit out of Peter, so now I'm back to being root, I'm going to change the privileges of this documents folder here in the Mike directory. So I'm going to do chmod, and I'm going to do, let's see, it was read, write, execute, read and execute, read and execute. So read is 4, execute is 1, so these represent 5 and 5. So I'm going to do chmod 7, 5, and then I'm going to do 0 here for the documents folder. So this non-users aren't going to be able to do anything. Or all other users are going to be able to do anything. So then let's write the documents folder. Okay, so if we look at the privileges here, those privileges have changed. So now as the root user, I should be able to get into documents, and I am able to. Okay, let's back out. I'm going to do su Mike. So we're now Mike, and I should be able to cd into the documents because I'm the owner of the folder. And we can. All right, let's get out of here. We'll exit. And now let's su as Peter. And let's see what happens if we're Peter, right? I have ls, and let's try to cd into documents. And we can't. We got denied. So it says permission denied. So changing the permissions of some of your folders is one way that you may be able to keep people out of places that they shouldn't be going into. All right, so let's clear the screen. And let's actually change that back. I want to change that back. So ls-tach-l, we'll do chmod. I think it was 755 documents. Okay, so that's perfect. Now Peter would be able to get back into that. All right, now we can give owner, so that's one way that we can kind of change the permissions, right, using the permission codes, those 3 numbers. Let's say we wanted to give a file the same permission across the board. Like we wanted to add execute privileges to everything. We can do that by typing, we'll work with file 3 here. If you look, no one has execute privileges here for file 3. So we can do this in one swoop, typing chmod +x. We're going to add execute privileges. If I did +r, it would add read. If I did +w, it would add write. So we're going to add execute privileges to file 3 across the board. And now when I type ls-tach-l, file 3, if you look, every single permission gained execute privileges. If I want to take it back, I just type chmod -x, file 3, and it's taken away across the board, just like it was before. So, I mean, let's talk for a second, right? With these, what does it mean to execute? Well, we really haven't talked about that much. We've done a lot of reading and a lot of writing, but we haven't done much executing. So let's go back to giving file 3 execute privileges. So chmod +x, file 3. And we'll do ls-tach-l. So that means that we should be able to execute this file. To execute a file, if you notice they turn green, that means we can execute them. You type period, / and then the file name. So right now this will try to run, but unfortunately it's going to give us a bunch of errors because there's just a bunch of garbage in here, right? If I cat this to the screen, file 3, it's really just some text that really doesn't have any significance. So let's actually make a new file that will run some code for us, that we'll be able to run a program maybe. So let's clear the screen, and I'm going to make a new file. We'll call it nano hello. Oh, do I already have that? Let me back out. Did I not get rid of it? ls. Oh, I have it already. Let me remove the file. Remove hello. Okay, so let's call this file nano hello. And inside here, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to put, we got to tell the computer what sort of language we're using. And so when we're going to write our bash script, and that's the language that we're using, we're going to start with a hashtag and an exclamation point, the shebang. And then we're going to say, okay, we're looking in the directory bin /bash. And so you always want to start here if you're going to use a bash script. You might be able to use a Python script, and we can look at that later on as well. And so the first thing that we're going to write is we're just going to say echo, and then we'll type hello world. And so echo is going to print something to the terminal screen. So we're going to print hello world to the terminal screen. And then we're going to print, so we'll say echo, what is your favorite number? All right. And so then we want users to be able to enter in their favorite number. And so we're going to use a command, the read command, and we're going to store whatever the user typed in. We're going to read it and store it into a variable called number. And then we're going to print this back to the user. So we're going to say echo. If we want to print the value that's in here, if I just type num, it's just going to print the letters NUM. But if I want to print the value that's stored in this variable, I'm going to use a $sign to indicate that we want to access the value. So $num, and then I'll say, what a great number. And then let's access the user's name. And so we're going to use, that's stored in a variable. And we'll talk more about this variable later on, capital user. And we'll end this. So if I click Control X to save this, I'm going to save this right now. And so right now, if I do ls-tech-l, I have my file hello, but it looks like if I try to do /hello, it says permission is denied. And the reason why is because it does not have execute privileges. So we should add the execute privileges. So we'll do chmod +x hello. So now if we look, hello is green, and we have execute privileges across the board. So anyone should be able to run this file. So let's see if this works. I'm going to do /hello, and it says, hello world, what is your favorite number? My favorite number is 42, and it says 42, what a great number. And then it says root, because that's who I'm currently I'm currently root. Let's switch this. Let's do SU, and let's put Mike in here. And so now if we look, we'll do ls-tech-l. Hello, for all other users, we should be able to read and execute this file. So we should be able to run this. So I'll do /hello, and we'll say my favorite number is 15. And now look here, it says 15. What a great number, Mike. And so it's changing our name. And so this is kind of like our first and really basic bash script. Now that we know how to write files and change the permission of the file, we're able to begin to look and talk about bash scripting, a very powerful tool when it comes to Linux computers. And that's something that maybe we'll build on in the future. So this will wrap up this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.